When I was a kid, my older sister told me I had a metal plate in my head and she would lock me out of the house during lightning storms. I'd run the neighborhood in zigzags screaming and crying like a maniac. How did your siblings torture you, Reddit? Another gem of hers was telling me I was too light to ride on elevators cause I was little, so when they would start moving I'd get thrown all around. She said my best bet was to lay flat on the floor and close my eyes. She would then push the basement or top floor button, and then the closed doors button, and then she would hop off and leave me to traveling around these large buildings by myself completely terrified out of my mind. Kinda funny to think about now, cause other people would load onto the elevator and find this little kid laying flat on his stomach with his eyes closed crying and blubbering on. But at the time it sucked. When I was a kid, me and my older brother had bunk beds. He slept on the top bunk, I slept on the bottom bunk. He created this game called Heads, where he would hit his head against the wall and I would have to hit mine harder. We'd play a few rounds of it every night, and for some reason he would always crack up when I had my turn. I learned a few years ago that he would just punch the wall for his turn. My older brother bought a laser pointer, edit, not to be confused with a laser printer, off a friend when he was about 14. Now, I don't know if any of you owned a laser pointer in your teens, but an immense amount of power comes from wielding one. My brother decided to unleash this power while my friends and I were having a sleepover in celebration of my 8th birthday. At about 10 o'clock that night, about 6 friends and I were in a big tent in my backyard, getting ready to attempt to stay up all night. Suddenly, a red dot appeared on the wall, about 3 inches in diameter. A few of us saw it, but before we could show the others, it disappeared. A gripping 10 minutes followed, as the group that saw it attempted to convince the group that didn't of its existence. Then, it reappeared. This time everyone saw it, and a few kids were visibly shaken, including me. Now, my brother had just gotten this laser pointer, and I either didn't know about it or didn't connect it to the mysterious dot. Over the course of the next hour, the dot appeared many times. It would move back and forth across the wall of the tent. It would swirl around, creating patterns on the wall. To our 8-year-old minds, it was a UFO beam. A serial killer's flashlight. The glowing eye of a monstrous cyclops. When the first kid ran screaming inside, my mom came to check on us, but the dot was conveniently gone by then, and she didn't believe us. Worst of all, my brother had gotten back to his room by the time my mom went to find him. Once the shaken child had been coaxed back into the tent, my mom went soundly to sleep. The dot came back, up to its usual antics, and 2 hours later all of us abandoned tent and ran inside terrified, waking up the whole house. A few of us slept in my room, but at least 2 were too scared to even be in the area, and had to be driven home at 1:30 in the morning. Since my parents didn't know about the laser pointer, it didn't get pinned on my brother until a couple years later. It wasn't physical pain, but at 8 years old, that was ducking traumatic. TLDR, brother gets laser pointer, shines it on the wall of my 8th birthday sleepover tent, severe trauma for 7 children. I have an identical twin sister. When we were younger, family friends of ours had conjoined twins that were a bit older than us. My older brother told my sister and me that all twins eventually grew together somehow and became attached. We spent a couple days in absolute horror before my parents corrected that one. Older brothers are geniuses when it comes to torturing younger siblings. Source: life experience. My older brother hit me in the head with an Xbox controller once. Genius. I was the oldest, so my torture came from my dad. He would sing opera-like nonsense at the top of his lungs when we were walking around the grocery store. It was mortifying. Also, when I was a kid, my elementary school was pretty far away. Both my parents worked, so my dad would drive me to a girl classmate's house and her mom would take us to school. He made up a very long, detailed song about how I was in love with her, I was not, and how we would get married one day. And he sang it in his falsetto opera voice on the way to and from her house. Every ducking day. I can still remember every word of the song, and it still gives me chills. One summer when I was about 10, it was early morning, and I had just started to descend the stairs. Suddenly my brother comes running to the bottom of the stairs and yells, "Steven's gone crazy." Steven being our stepbrother. About that same time I hear a chainsaw crank on, and my eyes went wide. My brother screams and runs off, and my stepbrother Steven comes charging up the stairs at me with a running chainsaw. Needless to say I almost shit my pants, and ran back up the stairs and hid in my room. Ducking brothers. Me and my brother were a year apart, and when we were little we took baths together. Oh okay, we still do but only on special occasions, like Easter and Tuesdays. We used to have our toys in there with us, and one day I got the genius idea to pee in the detachable mixer section of our little Tonka cement mixer truck. I turned to my brother and asked him if he wanted some lemonade, and he took a big ol' swig of it before spitting it out. Have no idea why I did this, have no idea where he thought I got lemonade from whilst naked in the tub. My sister convinced me that I was adopted, and that my parents didn't really love me like they did her. I was about 8, she was 12. I had to write a story for class, which the teachers were putting up outside the room for parent-teacher interviews. My principal called my mom and said that my story was concerning, so my mom went in to read it. I wrote about being adopted, but apparently it was a bit depressing. I haven't seen it, so I don't remember what I wrote. So my mom just pegged it down to me being creative and expressive and let them post it. While other parents were reading it, my mom overheard someone say, "Oh, that poor child," while reading my story. Mom flipped at that parent, then asked me about it. Sister got in huge shit that day. TLDR, sister convinced me I was adopted, I believed it, wrote a depressing story about it, sister got in shit. Edit, for all the people saying why is that a bad thing, being adopted isn't that bad. It wasn't the adopted part that really got me, it was that they loved her more than me. I did this same thing to my little sister. I told her that we found her under a bridge, and that I never remembered my mother being pregnant. The best part about all of this was that I told her we didn't have her birth certificate. She went to our mother asking for her birth certificate, so she could try to find some sort of evidence that she was a part of our family, but somehow at the time, my mother had lost it. Oh, I was so mean. My parents took all locks off doors when I was young, to avoid accidental lock-ins. So my brother would cover my hands and doorknob in lotion and leave me in my room crying, because I couldn't get the door back open. I was the oldest, and my brother is 7 years younger than me, so when I was 14 he was 7, half my age. I didn't so much torture him as I perpetually toughened him up. We'd box, wrestle, stick fight, sword fight, shoot arrows at each other. I'd build elaborate obstacle courses with pits, ropes, deadfalls, and other traps, then run him through them. In one of the more memorable moments, he got caught in a snare trap, and I refused to let him down until he manned up and cut himself free. Looking back on it as an adult, I feel like a complete lunatic for the kind of Spartan-like boot camp I put him through, but, and this is a big but, when I apologized to him for it he told me how awesome it was, and how his favorite memories from childhood were of those crazy times we spent together. On the upside, he's one badass mother ducker. You could walk right up to him, punch him directly in the face, and he'd just grin and ask you how you'd like your soul eaten. I had a weird sister. When I was first learning to play guitar, she would run home every day, unlock my case, and throw every one of my picks into the hole, and I'd spend 20 minutes shaking around my guitar until they fell out. When I got decent at that, she just started eating them. My little sister is a master of torture. Where to begin? I'll set the stage. It's late at night. There is one bathroom in our tiny house, and it is impossible to move without making at least some noise, and because my mother refuses to shut her door when she sleeps, which was directly across from the bathroom, I have to carefully tiptoe to the bathroom without stepping on a dog in total darkness, shut the door, turn on the light, do my business, wash my hands as quietly as possible, and then turn off the light before opening the door of the bathroom, because if awakened by either light or noise, mother will be livid. So, my little sister took advantage of this, every once in a while, not too often, not every night, but often enough that I was twitchy every night. Until the night I would forget, and then she would strike again. My sister would wait for the sound of movement, tiptoe downstairs and wait outside the bathroom door for me to open it in pitch black darkness, with my night eyes ruined by the bathroom light. All she would say was boo. Now, that's not the end of it, because my panicked yells at being spooked in the darkness by my sister would inevitably awaken my mother, who would yell at both of us, and if we had neighbors no doubt they would have heard. So, my sister would switch it up. Sometimes she would be waiting right outside the bathroom door. Sometimes she would be waiting around the corner in the kitchen or the pantry. Sometimes she would wait for me to pass her in the darkness and get me from behind, her hands gently placed on my shoulders in the dark. Sometimes she would be in my own closet, patient as a cat in the darkness. One time, she was in my bed. My beloved little brother tried, unsuccessfully, to smother me with a pillow once in retaliation to when I pulled down my pants and farted directly into his mouth. Once, I walked in to find one child smothering another. Certain that there was an innocent explanation behind that, I asked why. She replied, "'Cause I want her to stop breathing." Doctor here, that child is, as we say in the medical field, ducked up. My stepsister pulled many cruel pranks on me when I was around kindergarten age. This is just one. We had just gotten back from Wendy's, fast food chain in the US, and we both got the kids meal that came with a toy. I guess this was around the time Casper the Friendly Ghost movie came out, since these were Casper toys we got. My toy was a little plush Casper that would glow in the dark if it was in the light long enough. I turned off the lights and played with the glow in the dark ghost for a while, as she looked on in jealousy since her toy wasn't as neat. What her toy was escapes me now, as it was so long ago. After I turned the light back on, she pretended to become all worried with me. She ended up convincing me that since I touched the glow in the dark ghost I would become a ghost if I didn't do a series of steps to prevent it. This is what I had to do. 1. Drink 50 Dixie cups of water. 2. Jump on my bed for 2 minutes. I threw up all over the floor. But in the end she was grounded, and I got a toy as well. TLDR, stepsister told me toy ghost would turn me into a ghost as well, unless I chugged water and jumped on my bed. Blue chunks everywhere. Warning, now that you have started reading this you must keep reading even if you just read warning. You will turn into a ghost in 2 days if you do not. 1. Drink 50 Dixie cups of water. 2. Jump on your bed for 2 minutes. 3. Tell this to at least 6 other small impressionable children.